Live. So let's just jump right into it, you guys. It is amazing. It is amazing. Now, I want you guys to tell me, have you had the experience where you do something, you create something, and you just see it copied? Like, you guys know that we are really the first to do these lives that are these quiet black screen lives. And amazingly, I just saw someone who did it also on TikTok, and I'm looking at the dates, to see, is it my imagination? But it was just shortly after we started doing ours. So it's amazing, if you have an idea, keep going with it. Because sometimes people will try to make you feel insignificant. But you have to believe in your idea enough to just keep going, regardless of what people say or how they try to minimize an idea that you have. So that's the first point for today. If you're starting something and you feel that it is wonderful, you feel that it is worthwhile, don't let others discourage you, okay? I'm gonna give you 3 more points on when you start something. Number 2, the first is you don't want to let people discourage you. Number 2, it can be, and we see it so much today, it can be so frustrating when you start something and you see it copied and you don't feel that you're getting the proper reward. And you see it copied and maybe celebrated by somebody else. So try to stay the course when that happens, because when you have ideas flow to you, somebody who copies those ideas is not going to have the same longevity or abundance that you will have when the idea comes through you. And like the Bible says, no weapon formed against you shall prosper. So that's another thing to remember. First, don't be discouraged. Number 2, know that people will copy you. Number 3, kind of relates back to number 1, and that is, sometimes the more difficult it looks, the more valuable it's going to be. So the time factor, when you let go easily, quickly, you don't get to see the benefits. So you have to hang in there. Number 1, don't be discouraged. Number 2, when people copy you, stay the course even though you feel frustrated. Number 3, time being a factor. You have to invest that time and not just jump out of it. And number 4, I would say, and I've said this in other lives, be mindful of being jealous of others who seem to be doing wonderful things. If they did not get it the right way, it's not going to last. And you want things to last for other people. You want to have good thoughts and desires for other people, not just yourself. But be careful of that kind of jealousy, because what happens is you end up not putting, this is just one of the factors. You block your blessings in so many ways, but this is just one of the things. You have your energy so much on that person and how they're doing and what they're doing and whether or not it's fair that they have what they have and how they began, all which we can talk about on another day, can be valid questions sometimes. But when you are focusing on that other person and how they're developing, you don't have the proper amount of energy to put into your own goals. So, number one, stay encouraged. Number two, when people copy you, try not to be frustrated, keep going. Number three, the time factor. You have to put in the investment of time. If you want it immediately, then when the discouragement comes up, you're going to stop. And number four, put your energy on your work rather than being jealous of others. Now let me expound on number four, because I think this is easier said than done. You know, back before social media, and again, I'm going to get back to this idea of jealousy, and I'm going to touch back on it, but I do want to say thank you to all of you for coming and watching and listening to the lives. We are the only ones doing these dark, evenings where we're giving you something bright, figuratively, but it's in the dark, literally, gives you a chance to think. I hope that you can listen to my voice, sit back, relax. When you have these lives, I hope that you will enrich yourself by just listening and not letting stresses and then those other things get to you. And we're going to keep looking at these technical things to see what works. So I'm going to plug this in here. And you guys can always tell me in the comments or whenever if it sounds better here or if it sounds better now. So I'm going to continue, and I'm going to go back to this idea of jealousy. Now, it's easier said than done. People will say, oh, don't be jealous. Focus on your own things, It's a challenge because I think back in the day, before certain levels of technology were there, maybe you knew there was a princess and a prince. Maybe you knew how they were living in the king's palace. Maybe you knew, you heard about it somewhere, about, how many servants they had and how good their food was. But it was just a part of your day because you really were focused on your own day, feeding your own children, taking care of your spouse or helping your spouse, and focusing on what you're focusing on in your everyday life. And even if you look into, let's say, more recent decades, entertainment was turning on the television, was watching movies. And if you saw somebody in a film, you would say, oh, that's wonderful. But that's make-believe. They're going to go home to their own life, which is probably similar to mine in many ways, you might think. Or if they were very wealthy and in such a way that, you really, if you were to know the extent, you really couldn't relate immediately. How much did you really care? Because you were going to the movie, or you were, watching the show at home, and then you were going into your own life. But now our lives are integrated. If you have a YouTube feed that you explore, or a TikTok feed, or any of the social media, because somebody could be listening to this years from now and social media changes so much. So whatever social media you're engaged in, it's so integrated in your life now. So let's just say you just like gardening. You just like gardening. You really don't want to be bothered with politics. You don't want to be bothered with what's going on in reality television. You just like gardening. And so you searched a few videos on YouTube, or you've searched a few videos on a platform, and it's wonderful. And then you start getting some other, what may feel like intrusive videos that might be gardening, but politics may be involved. Oh, did you know that, using these particular kinds of equipment is linked to this or to this discussion or whatever, and politics are brought into it. Or, oh, did you know that this person in the public eye has this gardening tool? Or look at their garden, look at their house, look at their mansion. Meanwhile, you weren't really interested. You just wanted to look at your nice, little garden videos, and you didn't want to delve into that world that's full of comparison, that's full of, wondering if you made the right moves in your life because somebody's so much more advanced than you, seemingly. You just wanted to look at some simple gardening videos, and now politics are imbued into it. And now, somebody who's extremely wealthy is being tied into your feed. And so I say that to say, with jealousy and all of these things, it is easier said than done to just say, oh, don't compare. Don't worry about what somebody else is doing, because it may feel intrusive. Even if you're just minding your own business, you may feel that there's an intrusion of available comparisons for other people's lives. So I think it's important to also say to yourself, maybe sometimes congratulate yourself for being able to withstand some of the inclinations or the pushes for you to compare yourself to others and to feel dissatisfied with what you have. Maybe every once in a while you should say, wow, I was blessed to be able to do well in this area. I didn't let that comparison get in the way of my enjoying something. Because have you ever had that where something is just beautiful? You have a wonderful tea, with your friends or by yourself, or you got an article of clothing that you love, or you prayed and you had such a beautiful prayer and a conversation with your loving Creator, and you just feel so fulfilled and so grateful. And then, now I don't think this happens as much when I don't know if I've experienced that really after praying to God about something, but I do know that often I've seen, and I've experienced too, you accomplish something or you get something that you've worked on for a long time, and then it's so strange. You'll turn on like your social media, or you'll turn on the television, or you'll look and you'll just see something that seems to be showing you something that tops what you just accomplished. you just accomplished. And it can be dispiriting, it can be discouraging, it can be unpleasant. It's not that you wouldn't be happy for someone else, but there's something about the way negativity poses it. Like what you've done is so insignificant compared to what is being shown to you. Now, someone could say, well, why take it as a negative? Why not just take it as encouragement that you could also achieve something of that level? But sometimes you just want to rest in the great thing that you were able to do. It may not be great to other people. It may be a little recipe that you mastered. It may be a negative conversation that somebody was going to bring to you and you didn't get into it. It may be a simple stitch of clothing you taught yourself how to create. It may be letting go of something that hurt you and being amazed that by the end of the day, you weren't focused on it. Your mind really went to other things that were more productive for you at that time. And yet, and I'm going to call it negativity, shows you, oh, you mastered this recipe? Look at this person. They have a whole show. And they have millions of subscribers. And you just mastered this little recipe? But the mastering of that recipe took you so much time. And it's so pleasant. And it's something that you just wanted to enjoy. But immediately, you feel as though you're being pushed to compare what you've created to somebody else's accomplishment. And the other side of that is there are a few offshoots. And I'm going to give you 5 with those comparisons, okay, in this specific case. So let's look at this scenario where you created this wonderful dish, little recipe, you at home, not bothering anybody, minding your business. You create this wonderful dish and you finally mastered it. The taste is exquisite. And although you love to cook for others and treat others, this is just you at home. And it brings such joy to you that you were able to create this dish. And then, like I said in this scenario, but you go online or whatever the case may be, and then you see someone who has a full cooking show and they've got 10 million subscribers and they're mastering 3 dishes per episode. And suddenly you feel diminished. Let's look at 5 potential elements connected to that, okay? Number 1, this person who has this 10 million subscribers, a lot of people are starting to investigate this with these numbers. Because why is it sometimes somebody with 10 million subscribers gets the same number of views as somebody who has 200 subscribers or less or fewer? Sometimes it really makes people skeptical about these numbers. Okay, so that's the first thing. This person with all these numbers may not have the same kind of impact that you do. When you have challenges in your life, this is my opinion, we have particular kinds of challenges. There are a number of gifts that come along with it. It doesn't feel like it at the time, but there are gifts that are incumbent in it. There are gifts that are inextricably tied to those difficulties. So inextricably those difficulties are these rewards, but they're just not so visible immediately. So a lot of times when you struggle, you have challenge after challenge, there are rewards that are tied in. And again, inextricably, because it's a part of that whole thing that you're looking at. You're just seeing it for the challenge, but you're not realizing that what you can teach others, how you can help others, how you can help yourself, the stories you have to tell, the way you'll be able to feed yourself from sharing something that's valuable and others responding or, contributing to you, or advertisements alongside your valuable content. So that's the first of the 5, okay, when you compare. Number 1, you could be comparing yourself to somebody who has all these millions of subscribers, but they don't have the impact that you have. You've had a particular kind of struggle, and with it comes a particular kind of reward. Now, it's not always the case, but sometimes that person with 10 million followers, maybe they're connected to legacy media. In other words, traditional media, the channels that people used to know, NBC, CBS, and I don't mean to pick on them specifically, I just mean in general. Maybe they're connected to legacy media. That's a huge leg up. Anybody who goes, they say, oh, they're just gone from social media, and this is how they grew their following. If they had a television show in mainstream media, if they had a radio show in mainstream media, if they were ever signed to a major music company, they have a huge leg up. A huge leg up. It's a totally different story. So that person, in some cases, they got picked by somebody. And maybe they got picked because they know of somebody who knows of somebody, or because, they're related to this person, or whatever the case may be, or they have a great deal of money. And you have these 200 subscribers, but they are so riveted to your work. And your impact is so profound. And it even feeds into you feeding yourself. Because when people advertise with you, companies advertise with you, or people subscribe to you, they're going to feel that difference. And there's going to be a different kind of fruit that comes about. So whether you are in an instance where you're starting something new, or you're advanced, you're moving along, still those comparisons, not only are they not good, but in many ways they're not even valid, because you're starting from such different beginning points in many cases, and you don't even know. So one of the 5. Here's 2 of the 5. And again, we're going to these comparisons that one makes and the offshoots of that. Number 3, something to caution you when you compare or when you're jealous, is that that person may be jealous of you. Sometimes, even if you feel that you're in a disadvantaged position, full of challenges, dealing with so many things that are unfair. And you feel you're in a really unfavorable position. You don't know when somebody longs to have the things that you have, to be in the position that you're in. So it's really something to consider. That's the third thing. When you're comparing or when you're jealous, the very person that you're jealous of may want to be just like you, may want to have what you have. Which brings us to number 4. There are influencers, there are celebrities who can create a whole world around their own lifestyle and then market it to you. So whether they like it or not, if they're single, and I've said this before, they'll market to you that single life is so wonderful. If they're married, they will say, oh, but who are you going to come home to? You have to, these are the things you have if you want to truly be happy. Be aware that your blessings can come in so many forms. And you don't need to let somebody external validate that for you. So the point that I was just making is, remember when you see a seemingly picture perfect situation, it's often been curated. Whatever it is, if the person is in a relationship, they're going to make you feel for that time, oh, you should be in a relationship too. You should have this. You should. And then if the next week they're single, they say, oh, the freedom that they now have. You should have this. You should have what they have. It's very important to remember that. And the final thing that I'll say on this portion, when you're comparing or when you're envious, you have to remember that, and this ties back to what I said earlier, but I want it to be a prominent point in this comparison and jealousy thing. Because I don't think we should just attack or totally dismiss people who are in the position where they critique others or they seem to strongly criticize others because they're hurting. And I don't think we should just vilify them. We should examine. However, you block so many good things, in my opinion, I believe, when you don't want to see others do well. You knock out so many activities, ways to grow, gratitude. So I want you to remember those things. And if you are feeling jealous of other people, if you are feeling not jealous, but you're inclined to compare, it's hard. And so many things that are thrown in front of you to compare. There are all these other factors. Deeply, deeply profound differences in how you started and another person started. And I'll give you a bonus, also the experience. Because somebody can have tens of millions of subscribers, a mansion, and this and that, and check all these boxes, and they're still not happy. And yet you, quote unquote, broke, which is not a good thing to call yourself. We can talk about that another day. You can keep looking back at the lives to see that a discussion that. But sometimes, and I've heard this said, Alice Waters, they had a show they were doing, and one of the people that were commenting on the show, one of the people that was commenting said that the senses are the great equalizer. Now, that's a discussion. I'm not calling that a truism. I'm not, I just think it's a very interesting concept. Because the Alice Waters, as you know, she founded Chez Panisse in California, and it's been recognized for excellence. I don't know what it's doing right now, but she's really quite an amazing person, Alice Waters. And she was very kind to us too. We wrote to her, long story for another day. But this comment that the person made on her show, and again, I hope you're leaning back, listening, just enjoying. I hope you listen to the lives when you have time, even when you're resting, go to sleep. Even if you are doing some spa-like behavior, and the steam is rising and falling, and you have beautiful fumed air, and the water is rippling around you. I hope you will put these podcasts on, these lives on, and experience this as the escape that in many ways I would like it to be. And I'm going to get back to that point, that final point that I was making about what that commenter said in the PBS Alice Waters special about the senses being an equalizer, because they were talking about food and the experience of food. But I hope that you listen to the lives this way. And I hope you know that we have great supporters like Aguila Express, West New York, the Early Owego Antique Center in Western New York. And this is a theme. You may see other people pop in on it, copy it, talk about it. But we have a theme from West New York. You can research it. It's a place in Hudson County, to Western New York. You can research that too, that region of the United States. And those of you who know, if you're from Hudson County and you say, oh, I know West New York, and West New York is sometimes used, put a comment if you know about West New York, Weehawken, Union City, North Bergen, Guttenberg, even Secaucus sometimes described in this group, Edgewater. So that's from West New York to Western New York. Places like Skaneateles, Geneva, Ithaca, Syracuse, Auburn. So in West New York, we have Aguila Express. You can look on our website to know more. And in Western New York, You have places like the Early Owego Antique Center. Really peep this conversation from West New York to Western New York and look at the great businesses that are supporting what we're doing. And when you listen to these podcasts, know that even when you hear of a sponsor, that these are businesses that are helping to make others' lives better. And when you lean back and you listen to these podcasts, imagine the ways in which they can help to make your life better. So I'm going to end talking about that idea of the senses being the great equalizer. Remember, somebody who has $1 billion and they worked very hard to accumulate that money. What's really important is you may only have a few dollars, but how do you experience life? Where do you get your joy from? If you have $1 billion and you're not happy, what does that mean? Is that even really $1 billion? Because money can be very helpful to you. Money can be can help you in different situations. Money can help you build things. Many things. But if you are unhappy, whether you have $10 billion or $10, nobody can dictate that to you. You decide. You decide. Are you depressed? Let's keep having these conversations. I'm hearing so many of you saying that these lives or these social media posts are helping you. Let's stay the course. I love you guys so much. Thank you for joining today. And if you really want to help us, subscribe, give it a like, comment. It helps a lot. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for hearing my rhetorical questions as well. Tell me your thoughts. Thank you guys. We'll see you next time.